Hi, and thanks for tuning into my Feldenkrais channel. Today, we will be doing the awareness through movement lesson, differentiation of pelvic movements by means of an imaginary clock. In short, the pelvic clock. In this lesson, you will identify superfluous and unconscious efforts by the muscles of the pelvis and learn to refine, control the position of the pelvis and improve the alignment of the spine. You will increase your ability to coordinate and oppose head and trunk movements. This improves the twisting movements of the spine possible in the erect position. Please lie on your back with your knees bent and feet standing hip-width apart. Place your arms on the ground to either side of you, also a comfortable distance from your torso. Raise your hips from the ground by an effort of the muscles of the back so that the lumbar vertebrae, the lower back, form an arc on the floor. Try to make this arch larger so that a mouse could run through it. You will feel your feet gripping the floor. The muscles at the front of your hip joints will help by raising the upper part of your pelvis from the ground, resulting in increased pressure on the coccyx, the tailbone. And now slowly let the hips go back to the ground again and rest there. Now imagine a clock dial painted on the back of your pelvis. The figure 6 is drawn on the tailbone and the 12 at the top of the pelvis, where it joins the spine. Keeping the imaginary clock in mind, we may say that in the movement we just did, the hips were raised and most of the pressure of the pelvis came to rest at the point marked as 6 o'clock. Let's complete the clock phase with 3 o'clock in the area of the right hip joint and 9 o'clock on the left hip joint. And the other hours will be marked at their appropriate places in between. Now try once more to shift most of the pressure of the pelvis on the floor to the point marked 6 o'clock. So at the tailbone. Your back muscles will produce the curvature of the lower back vertebrae, which will be increased by the contraction of the muscles of your pelvis and knees. This contractor will pull at your feet, which are still planted firmly on the floor. Now shift most of the pressure of the pelvis to the point marked 12 o'clock. This means that the top of your pelvis and the lumbar vertebrae will now be resting on the ground. The tailbone will of course rise from the ground and the pressure on your feet will increase. Return to 6 o'clock and then again to 12 o'clock and repeat this action various times. Try to make the movement slow, smooth, continuous and easy. Also try to separate your breathing from the movement. Your breathing should continue without regard to changes in the position of your body. Stretch out your legs and study the feeling in your pelvis. Observe at which points your contact with the floor has changed. Did you notice that as soon as your breath was separated from the movement, your head began to move in coordination with your pelvis, as though it were copying the movement on a smaller scale? Now let's imagine a small dial at the back of your head. The center of the dial will be at the point at which there is the greatest pressure when the head is resting on the floor. When the pelvis is in the position of maximum pressure at 6 o'clock, the head will be pulled down by the spine so that the chin comes to rest on the throat, and most of the pressure will now come at 6 o'clock on the head dial. When the pelvic pressure comes at 12 o'clock, the head will be pushed back by the spine, the chin will be pushed away from the throat, and the point of maximum pressure will be shifted in the direction of the top of the head at 12 o'clock on the head dial. With the two clocks in mind, start to move the pelvis again from 6 to 12 o'clock, slowly, easily. Also paying attention that you are not preventing the head from repeating the movements of the pelvis. Observe how this movement affects your breathing, and also how your trunk passes the movement of the pelvis onto your head and the other way around. Leave it and rest in lying with your legs long, and just notice how you're resting. Bend your knees and stand your feet again hip-width apart. And now slowly roll the pelvis to 3 o'clock. Your right hip joint. You will now have more weight on your left foot than on your right. And the left hip joint will rise from the floor. The pressure on the right leg will be relaxed somewhat. Now slowly reverse the movement and roll your pelvis to 9 o'clock, to your left hip joint. And then continue with this movement. Roll the pelvis from left to right, from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock, several times. Slowly and easily. And observe how the head repeats this movement on a smaller scale, as long as you are not tensing your chest and not interfering with the rhythm of your breathing. Let go of this movement and just rest with your legs long. Bend your knees and stand your feet hip-width apart again. And now start to make circles on the floor with your pelvis, moving it clockwise. Slow, comfortable, in a way that you really enjoy moving it around. And during this movement, try to observe your body as a whole, and at the same time, its parts separately. Let your attention move systematically from one point of the body to the next, but without losing sight of your body as a whole. Observe the movements of your head without stopping the clockwise movement of both pelvis and head. And concentrate alternately on your head as a leading movement and then on the pelvis as a leading movement. Observe how the quality of the movement improves steadily, becoming more continuous, smoother, more accurate, and maybe even faster. Pause. And now make various circles of the pelvis and the head counterclockwise. Is this very different? And again, observe your body as a whole and at the same time its parts separately. And concentrate alternately on your head as a leading movement and then in your pelvis leading the movement. Rest, lengthen your legs, and observe the changes that have taken place in the position of the whole body with respect to the floor. Is it very different from the beginning of the lesson? Different parts touching the floor, some parts flatter, fuller, more alive. Now very slowly roll to one side and slowly come to sitting. And then slowly come to standing. And in standing, observe the changes in the angle of the pelvis with respect to the spine, and the quality of your breathing, and the movement of your arms and legs. And what can you feel in your eyes and your facial muscles? Thank you for joining this lesson, and I hope I see you again. If you've liked the lesson, please give me thumbs up. And you can also subscribe to my channel.